All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to discuss the first press conference of E3 2017. We just finished watching 4 hours or 3 hours? 3 hours, I think, somewhere in there of EA stuff, for better or worse. And now we're going to just talk about our general consensus, our general conclusions on it. You can see that Jeff has miraculously changed today. We're a man down because Jeff is doing his retro video game haul stuff. But he will be with us for the Microsoft press conference tomorrow.
Isn't there 2 tomorrow?
There very might well be. I just don't know if Jeff will be there for more than just Microsoft. So for now, I'm only saying Microsoft. So yeah, so we watched all the E3 stuff. There was some pretty good stuff in there. There was a lot of just kind of whatever. And I guess the way we can start this out is, what was your feel on the actual press conference part? Not the extracurricular stuff at the end, but what was your rating for the press conference itself?
I say a 6 out of 10. And that's kind of that's aggregated over a bunch of different factors. They had a lot of issues with the production quality. I think the camera work was shoddy, audio was kind of quirky there, and the dialogue just seemed overly scripted and kind of like it was. There were moments where I was kind of like, oh my god, and it's just very much Jeb Bushy, where it's like you could tell they were just like, please clap.
That's very true.
But other than that, and that's just around the conference itself. In terms of the stuff that they showed us, though, I was actually pretty happy. I'm not overly hyped about anything, but they didn't lean too heavily on the promo material side. We got to see a lot more gameplay than I thought we would see, other than the Bioware little teaser thing. We got to see a lot of gameplay. Like, if you think about it, we saw a lot of Battlefront gameplay. We saw a decent chunk of, I forgot the title of the game, the one from Hazelight.
A Way Out.
Yeah, A Way Out. We got to see some gameplay around that. We saw a fair chunk of Need for Speed Payback. And granted, we can talk more about the individual titles later, but we got to see the gameplay. We didn't, for the sports games, we didn't see that much. We saw more hype material, but I was relatively happy with the amount of gameplay we actually saw.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice change of pace. I want to say that might be the theme of this E3 is the gameplay stuff.
What was your rating before you?
Yeah, before I go too far into that, that's true. I think 6 is fair. I would agree with 6. I don't think we need to go north of 6 for that. There wasn't any super glaring bad crap that went on. It was just that they didn't have a lot of big punches. They had some stuff that was certainly interesting, like you mentioned, A Way Out, which we'll talk more about. And they had the Bioware teaser for Anthem. But because of the restrictions for Anthem, yeah, for example, we didn't get a lot of really really heavy stuff at their conference, and most of it's probably going to happen at other conferences. So, but that being said, the speakers they had were relatively good, but nothing spectacular, and it was just a very average conference. It started on time, so they got an extra point just for actually being on time. Which is a rarity at these E3 events, so that was nice to see as well. But yeah, definitely a 6 out of 10. Let's start with A Way Out, because that actually happened relatively early on in the conference.
Yep. It's also it looks like, you can tell it's more like an A title as opposed to like a AAA title. It's got the AAA graphics.
It's a B+
some areas, but other than that. Yeah, A. Like I said, instead of AAA, it's just like A. So it's like, It's got high production value, but it's not like using the latest and greatest technology.
Right.
I feel like that's like one of those games that's going to be punching at like the $50 title range, instead of the full-on $60 that we see nowadays. And I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily sold on the forced co-op. I don't know how easy that's going to be to play with people. But in terms of I'll give them props because we were talking about this in the podcast. We don't see new material. And you know what?
Yeah.
Spot on for EA for showing us new material with gameplay, with details, and like showcasing it in. They gave it a good amount of time on the presser too. It wasn't like boom, done. Like here's
No, it was a
something.
fair
It's like,
chunk
no,
of
we
time
got
to
to see it.
that.
We got to hear about it. We got to see it. Like it
Yeah.
was nice to see. I'm not necessarily sold on that model because I don't have too many friends to play with locally like that. But it seemed like an interesting take.
I think the thing that came up, and I don't know, maybe they intended for this to be more obvious or not, I don't know, but like you were saying, it does require a co-op partner. They said couch co-op is the way to go, but it does have online as well. But the way they kept phrasing it, it kept making it seem like there wasn't going to be like, you can't just go online and find somebody else who also doesn't have friends and meet up and play the game together. It just sounded like you still needed to be, friends on this console or whatever, or the PC or wherever it's coming, in order to make that happen. So that would be my biggest question, and maybe we'll find that out during E3. Maybe there will be some clarification, but that was like the thing that kept coming up in my mind was as soon as you said it's co-op only, but then mentioned obviously there's online, there wasn't really a confirmation of whether or not that meant, you still had to have real friends or not. So we'll see how that goes. But it did look really good.
We'll see where
it
that
looked
goes.
Yeah, Brothers was a great game. And it's obvious that they care a lot about co-op gameplay, and so they're just continuing that with this. And it kind of just looked like, I don't know, like Prison Break, I guess, essentially the video game. And so that will be fun to watch and see how that comes along. The next thing that we saw quite a bit of, a fair amount of, was Battlefront 2.
Lot of Battlefront 2.
Like a lot of Battlefront 2, yeah.
Let me hear your impressions before I go off on it. Not necessarily in a bad way. Not necessarily in a bad way. I'm sure we'll see more.
Well, okay, so Battlefront, the first Battlefront, like I said during the, us talking over the conference, which if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'm going to probably make an effort to post it. It'll be lengthy, but you'll be able to watch it there if you want to see our real-time reactions. Battlefront 1 to me just felt like a demo of a game. It didn't feel like it had enough of anything to be considered a full game, and yet they were charging all sorts of money for that thing. So, but like we also talked about, graphically it looked fantastic.
I may play Battlefront 1 tonight just to see where it's at now.
Yeah.
Compared to when it launched.
Sure. It sounded great. It looked great. It wasn't like a super clunky shooter, but the spawn camping was a complete nightmare. The lack of maps was kind of brutal. They split the community with the DLC for those maps. It was just a poorly handled game in general. That had a lot of people hyped up, and that died out quick. So when I saw Battlefront 2 come up and they did their whole spiel for it, we already knew it was going to look good. We already knew it was going to sound good, and it did.
EA has not had a problem with making good-looking games for a very long time. They like
Frostbite.
All of their titles look incredible when they come out.
Yeah. So we knew that was going to be the case.
Never fault them for graphics.
It was going to be about, what are they going to, how much are they going to have listened to the community? And it was kind of funny because they kind of ribbed, poked at themselves a bit. They ribbed themselves where, they put up all those tweets. They started with Boyega's tweet and then just peppered the screen with people, complaining about stuff. And there was that one that was like, how does FIFA have a story mode and not Battlefront? So they knew that they had done, some pretty terrible crap with that first one, and so they immediately wanted to put a lot of that to rest. So we're getting a story mode with it. We're getting that campaign that everybody wanted to see. We're the biggest thing that I heard come out of their mouths, from what I understood it, was at least for the multiplayer part. They didn't make a distinction about the expandable campaign stuff, which I can't even imagine it would be the case. But as far as the multiplayer stuff, there will be no more splitting up of the community, whereby they will release the multiplayer maps and the multiplayer related stuff for free. So the communities, the servers, the playlists, they're all going to be one all the time, which is great, because the moment you start splitting the community up, it gets real awkward, and you get a smaller player pool to play with, and it's tough.
Oh yeah.
But I imagine they're probably going to charge for the story mode expanded stuff that comes along with whatever multiplayer expanded stuff whenever it's released. So they have to offset their costs somehow. I think that's a perfectly fair model. I can't imagine anybody complaining about that. That would be just absolutely silly. So that was the big surprise for me, was that. We're getting space combat. We're getting local co-op for that shit. Like, it's almost everything the community asked for happens. So I was all thumbs up. That was the best thing they did.
They didn't really show us much of the space combat, and something where I feel like they really, and one of the big ones, they didn't show much, if anything, on the progression. I'm sure there is stuff, and they kind of touched on it, but I need to see a lot more on that, because the problem I had with Battlefront 1 was I played it for I'm looking at Origin, it says I played the game for an hour and a half. I looked at it because effectively there was no progression. You got you unlocked a couple of different faces and maybe a gun or two alternatives for your whatever class you were, and there was really no tactical depth to what you were doing. So for me, that was again, from the gameplay we saw, it looked like they added a lot of stuff there. So I'm interested, but I need more detail on that before I'm going to make any decision on if I'm going to even buy the game or not.
Yeah, of course. And I'm still waiting for Liam Neeson's to be a playable freaking hero. I need him in that game. I'm seeing Darth Maul. I'm seeing Rey. We got announced that Finn is there. I swear to God, if Jar Jar fucking Binks is in that game before Liam Neeson's, I'm gonna lose my mind. But yeah, it looks great. It looks great. We saw a ton of gameplay. They ran a half hour plus of gameplay from that game, and it looked great. It looked like it was performing.
They did their job on that.
It was performing well. So that was really good. In fact, that was EA's whole thing, like we said before. I mean, they had people playing a lot of these games out in the open the whole time. So this E3 I don't know how many people still might not know this, but it's the first E3 to be open to the public. So you could still totally go into E3. So there's a lot more people there that are going to be lining up to play games. And so you're going to see probably a lot of these guys having kind of big open areas with a bunch of consoles and PCs set up for playing some of these games. Because this is going to be a great opportunity for people to get their hands on it. So, so that was really cool. A thing that you were looking forward to that we got to see a pretty reasonable chunk of as well was Need for Speed.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, part of it was the voice acting was just so bad, and I can understand why. But the racing looked okay, and they had the customization back. I got to see how much that customization, in an underground, you can tune the performance of the actual car. They didn't really show how the tuning would impact the performance of the car. So I got to see what that interconnect is. But the customization they did show looked pretty cool. If they have that level of customization on a lot of the cars, I'll definitely pick the game up, put it through its paces. But it definitely seems like they're kind of going back to the original Need for Speed form instead of the kind of a mix of the Criterion Need for Speed and the older style ones. So I think they're trying to get that balance back. Not to say anything bad about the Criterion Need for Speed games. They were really good, but they didn't really feel like Need for Speed, but they were really good racing games.
The driving that Criterion brought in, the style of driving they brought in was better than the old Need for Speed, but everything else about Need for Speed was better prior to Criterion. So I agree with that. Also, I agree with the voice acting. Need for Speed, you expect the voice acting to be pretty bad, but in previous Need for Speeds that a lot of people like Underground, like Most Wanted, it was camp. It was intentionally bad, right? The writing was just
it was just
made to be cheese. This was just bad. This was they actually attempted to make it be an action movie that would be kind of cool and exciting and everything, and
But
it just
the
fell
voice acting to carry
flat.
that.
Yeah, it was pretty.
To carry that.
It was pretty bad. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But outside of that, it looked like it's going to drive pretty well. Graphically, it looks fantastic. For the one environment
I
we
had
saw,
no problems with any graphics from any of the games. Like all of them looked, one, they looked great. Two, they looked like they were running pretty well. I hope they're not like frame locked to like 60 FPS on the PC or whatever, but what we did see, everything looked like it was running smoothly. Even the Battlefield night map looked solid. Like the water looked good and reflections were good. Like no issue with the way they're using Frostbite and kind of pushing everything out. It was great.
I think that's actually been we talked about this a bit too, where we were discussing how basically everything is running Frostbite now. Like and on top of that, EA seems to be taking all of the companies they have under their umbrella.
A huge way to save money.
And mixing and matching and saying, look, you guys are best at doing this kind of part for the game, and you guys do handle this better. And they seem to be kind of meshing their internals a bit, and it's producing some pretty damn good results. And I think this series of games, because they just made this switch to like full Frostbite, I think in like last year.
Yeah.
So this year will be the first
fire title. Way things look.
So I think this year will be like the first year where we're really seeing almost every damn game they've got under them, not only on Frostbite, but also being treated in this multi-developer kind of in-house effort, so to speak. And it will be fun to see how a lot of these games turn out. So that was pretty cool.
That.
Yeah. I would also in Need for Speed be interested in the whole customization thing. In Underground,
I think is like there's such a huge spectrum on how it impacts everything.
Yeah,
it's like Underground.
I would
was
want,
the game.
I would want Underground 2 levels of it. Underground 2 was a good mixture of arcade and actual performance tuning.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
There were some
Forza.
races. Yeah, there were races in Underground 2, and again, I played a lot of Underground 2. I love that game. There were some races where I had tunings for my cars that would work really well for some of the races, but then I'd run the race a couple of times and then I'd realize, no, I'd lose by a little bit or just something. And I'd have to be like, okay, no, if I adjust so-and-so on the car, I'll get a little bit more drift on the turn, which will then get me that, that 0.1 second I need to get that turn. So like I'd go in, I'd do the tune, I'd run it around the track, and then I'd go run the race again. And I'd be like, boom, I got it. And I want that. I know that's kind of like a very min-maxy type behavior, but having the ability to do that made the game so much more, rewarding, because like you have to know your car. It also incentivizes you to be like, oh no, time for a new car. It's like, no, you have to think about it. Like if I get that new car, it's going to start a bit lower. I can build it up. I don't definitely, the final peak is higher, but do I want to make that change to that car now? A lot of the later Need for Speed games came like, oh no, as soon as you move up a tier, that's a show. It's like tier 1 is here, tier 2 is here, tier 3 is here.
Yeah, it's really distinct. It's
like tier 1 would like go from here to here. Tier 2 would go from like here to like here. And there's like a spectrum. There's points where your tier 2 car would perform better than whatever you could get at tier 3 at the time.
Which was nice because it meant that if you had a car that you particularly liked, you could use it longer.
And you can like kind of get it paced out.
Yeah, exactly. So I too am interested in that, and just the visuals of it. How much visual stuff we're going to be able to mess around with. But so far,
Ubisoft and their promises with the crew. So I'm like, I have that in the back of my mind. So I'm just I'm like, EA, don't like screw me over like Ubi did.
Yeah, and we're gonna see the crew too show up at E3. I'm sure at Ubisoft's press conference.
Would not be surprised.
Yeah, so we'll be able to make a kind of a as close to an apples to apples comparison as far as E3 goes. Anyway, when that pops up, we also saw a lot of sports ball. We don't need to talk about the sports stuff specifically, but the overall thing, I guess we could say, just as a quick summation of this, for people that aren't super in depth with the whole sports titles thing, is that obviously differentiating sports titles year on year has been a struggle for the companies for a really long time. it got to the point where we were actually losing features in certain calendar years, in some weird effort to
Like
bring
even
everything.
years you'd get better other modes, and in odd years
Yeah,
you would get better gameplay.
it was just
It's
really
like,
weird,
okay.
and so it was always a toss up. Now I guess the big thing this year for all of EA's titles is this putting way more effort into story modes. We saw that last year with FIFA. They're continuing that same storyline within FIFA this year, and they didn't talk too much more about it because it was already in place. But the NFL one, the Madden 18 one, they spent an eternity talking about it. And fair to them, they have some actual actors with, legit chops. They got an Oscar winner in this shit. They got a lot of talent behind it. And so, why not give it some shine? But that seems to be the thing. Everybody wants to, I guess, hop on this story bandwagon. I don't know how much that kind of game mode plays to the hardcore. If that's just something that's more for people that aren't really into the deep franchise type stuff. But I guess I can't hate them for trying to do something different.
I'm not gonna blame them for it, because that they have a whole other demographic that's not us.
Yeah, exactly.
For those games. So, like, I appreciate that they're trying to add like a deeper franchise and story mode. I feel like they're playing too much on like characters, because like for me at least, I played some sports games. Like granted, I'm not like the standard Madden, but I played a bunch of NBA games. I haven't seen a good NHL game in a while, but Fight Night was one of my favorite EA Sports games.
Yeah,
like
they did a great job with Fight Night.
Like, yeah, but I haven't seen one in a while. I'm like, a good boxing game is always good.
Yeah.
So they haven't done that in a while, but that's something where it's like you can build your own character, but you don't have that in this. You're like given the character that you have to play. I'm like, for me, that doesn't quite work in a sports game. Like, I don't want to get a branching story of a random person.
Is EA handling the UFC games?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wondering
UFC
maybe
games.
if the Fight Night guys have been ported to
They've probably
UFC
been doing
duty.
some of the UFC stuff.
Yeah, but I agree. I've forgot about Fight Night, but they were great games.
That was a great
really
franchise,
well
and they just all of a sudden stopped making games. I'm like, Fight Night Round 4 or whatever, where you had like the stick control for the box. I'm like, this is incredible.
It's probably because MMA is just so much more popular mainstream right now than boxing that they can't, they don't want to take the risk of dumping a bunch of money into it. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see it come back around anyway. But just when, who knows? And then like I guess the last thing to talk about, and ironically the most brief of all of them, was BioWare's new Anthem game, which is a brand new IP entirely that we just got a teaser for.
I didn't feel like it when I saw it. I'll have more comments after, because they kind of teased it, and then they said we're going to show more during the Microsoft point.
Yeah, Microsoft.
For me, it looked extremely derivative. I mean, granted, it looked like it's definitely new IP, but I'm like, we were joking, like it's like Destiny Falls, Zero Dawn or whatever, like a mix of like 5 different game like things. So I was just like, all right, I guess we'll see more. But we got like a 30-second teaser, so I don't have much to comment on it other than I hope it's not as derivative as it looks.
From what you saw in there, like, is there, or I don't even know, you sounded like you knew more about this going into seeing the teaser than I did.
I just I heard new IP BioWare, and it was going under the title Project Dylan.
Okay.
All I knew about it, BioWare has been super tight-lipped about it. Even my friends who work at BioWare said nothing. They were super tight-lipped about it.
So do you think they're actually going to make a genre departure and do something completely different for BioWare, or do you think this is just going to be more BioWare standard fare with a new?
I think this is EA's answer to Destiny.
Okay.
I feel like it's going to play like the Mass Effect stuff, but they didn't want to use a Mass Effect IP for it. So I feel like they're just like they're switching it up a bit. So I guess we'll get a lot more. Yeah,
tomorrow.
I'm curious.
So the and this is a lot of the people, if not the whole team, that was the original Mass Effect crew that made the games before they were shit, were taken off of that to do this game that nobody knew about until today. So I mean, if there was a chance for it to be good, that's it. And it better, I feel like it has to be really good because they basically just self-sacrificed their main franchise in terms of quality to
the
prop
Andromeda
up
team
this
kind
new
of
IP.
missed on things. I think they had more confidence in the Andromeda team than they should have. Again, I loved Andromeda, but I see the game and I see the criticism that everyone has against it, and they're completely in the right on their criticism. Like, there were a lot of problems with the game. So I feel like they overestimated the ability of the Andromeda team to deliver on it. And so, yeah, hopefully it ends up being worth it because I hope Dylan's good. But I guess we'll see. Or Anthem, sorry, is good. We'll know more once we see more.
Yeah, so tomorrow we're gonna get that. Now the thing that Panic said, I'd just laugh. It almost impossible that would be the case, but an Xbox exclusive for Anthem. Maybe
I'd be a little worried if that was the case.
They're mentioning that it's going to be at Xbox's presser. They didn't mention it to be anywhere else. So while it might not be an exclusive, perhaps it's a time. Like
it might be
timed?
Xbox PC. It might be the whole Xbox Anywhere thing where you can play it on your PC or on the Xbox.
Xbox needs something like the Scorpio would need something like that, right?
Like, Anthem might be that because we were talking about the Microsoft win needs to be something, and we don't usually know EA to do exclusives, so this might be that that console seller that we were saying Microsoft needs. So I guess we might find out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm more interested now about tomorrow. Yeah, because that's gonna be quite something to see just how that rolls out. What was there anything you were hoping to see at this conference that you didn't end up actually seeing?
No, I mean, we heard there were going to be around 8 titles. They had around 8 titles. I'm surprised at the amount of emphasis on sports and that they let off with it, but I'm not really. I wasn't dissatisfied with what I saw. I wasn't supremely satisfied either. Again, it's kind of like been the whole tone of E3 for me is kind of meh, but I'm happy that EA showed as much gameplay as they did. It's a big deal because like a lot of E3 we don't get enough gameplay and we feel like we've been oversold. I don't feel like I got oversold on what we saw today. I have more questions, but I felt EA did a good job of representing on what they're going to deliver to us, throughout the remainder of the year. And I heard November for 2 of the games at least, so I'm, that's nice because that's only 5 months. That's not like coming next year. It's like we know Anthem is going to be a while away.
2018. But,
yeah, but for some of the big ones like Payback and
but what if Anthem isn't a while away? What if Anthem is a launch title for the Scorpio?
I don't think so. I feel like they would have Bioware wouldn't shoot themselves in the foot by not marketing earlier. Because Bioware likes their hype trains and their ARGs before the games launch and all of that stuff. They like to do their promo stuff.
Wouldn't that be fucking interesting if it was a launch title? I think that would be fine. I think
3-month launch cycle before it.
Yeah, there. I feel like there's if that was the case, there's enough hype. I feel like there's enough hype behind a console launch and then having it be a launch title that you don't need to have your usual, crazy standard fare. But
they might just say Scorpio launch title and PC like 2 months after.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could even be something like that, right? So yeah, and again, we're gonna see more of it tomorrow. But just guessing at it is always kind of fun, and it will be. I can just visualize it in my head. They end with a trailer with some gameplay, and then it just boom, and there's the date, the same shit they do all the time, and it says, either Xbox and PC exclusive, or it says
for
timed
Anthem,
exclusive.
I feel like we're gonna see winter 2018 for Anthem. I feel like that's what we're gonna see.
I think it depends.
Like that's a year and a half off.
Yeah, I just don't know when they started working on it, right? So I have no idea.
Yeah.
what their timeline's been. But either way, we will see more of that tomorrow. I personally, there wasn't anything that I was looking for that wasn't here necessarily. BioWare's thing was what I was most interested in, and we saw just a snippet of it, which is understandable, and also really gets me intrigued that they decided to give the most of that game's coverage to Xbox's press conference and not their own. That I think is pretty substantial, so it will be kind of fun to see where they go with that. And yeah, the patch notes have been wrong the entire time, but there's no reason to use patch notes for this. It's just whatever. But yeah, so that was my thing. So that was covered. And I guess the only thing, just not for myself, but for my better half, she was desperately hoping, Gabs was desperately hoping to see The Sims in some way, shape, or form. Nothing at the press conference
The Sims
here.
is an E3 title. I feel like that's not an E3 title that they would show.
Well, I think it will happen at E3, but not on the conference stage. It'll be something that they talk about outside of it, perhaps. But I mean, The Sims has been main stage before. It just usually requires a numbered
big one
sequel, right? Like Sims 3, Sims 4, Sims 5 will be on stage, kind of thing. One last thing I wanted to mention before we wrap this bad boy up, was how weird was it to see all these YouTube and Twitch personalities being represented at this conference? Like, we saw a number of them given the mic. One guy, I can't remember what his name was, bless his heart, it looked like the teleprompter died, and he died with it.
Oh, Jesse Wellen, yeah.
Yeah.
The YouTubers didn't do as hot because they're not, I feel like because they're not as used to doing, like, stuff live like the Twitch people are.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're just like, oh, I can't do another take. Oh, I can't. I can't. I feel like his mind was like, I need to do another take. Oh shit, I can't do another take. Oh, how am I gonna ramp up the hype, man? Ramp it up. Oh shit, I don't know what to say.
There was so much hand talking. It was amazing.
Yeah. So I think you just like, again, like it's nice that they're being represented.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can do a whole podcast on that and our opinions on it.
I just think I don't have a lot of opinions on it, to be completely honest with you. I think it's perfectly fine. I'm happy that they're doing it. I think it's funny. I think it's going to be funny to watch them try and figure out how to best weave these guys in, and then how much more of maybe a pre-screening they do with some of these people to know whether or not they're actually comfortable to do what they're asking them to do, because obviously that's not the case all the time. So. But yeah, that was kind of funky to see, and I think it will be fun to see how much the other conferences use, if not, if at all, other personalities from the community. I think obviously the PC one, you're going to see a lot of it because Sean spearheads that thing as MC, so there's a higher probability.
That's on Monday though, right? I have to miss that one, sadly, because I'll be at work.
Yeah, I think it's Monday. I don't know what the time. I don't know what the schedule thing for it is, but
it's like Monday afternoon or something.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess that's it for the EA press conference, ladies. Hopefully you got some enjoyment out of that. We're going to be back on the E3 bandwagon tomorrow for the Microsoft press conference, and if there's other conferences going on, then perhaps Panic and I will also be in. I know Jeff will be down for at least Microsoft, so we'll get that far. But I don't know, Panic's going to look up.
Let's see what we got going.
Yeah, we'll see what's coming.
So Saturday we had EA. Okay, we've got. So Jeff's going to be on for the Microsoft one. That's tomorrow,
right?
Around 6 o'clock your time, 5 p.m.
so
Eastern
5 Eastern
for normal people. And then I guess you and I are gonna kick off the late show with Bethesda. Oh, never mind. Wow, that ain't happening.
Why?
12 a.m. Eastern time.
What? 1 o'clock in the morning my time for Bethesda? Really?
It's 9 p.m. Pacific, but they really did not plan that well.
Wow. Holy hell. Okay,
like
so
late night TV. Maybe not.
I might still do it. I might be able to convince Jeff to do it. I don't know, but we'll see how that pans out. We won't promise anything because that's some heinous timing.
If they're going for an hour, that might be. I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think Jeff's going to care about Bethesda.
Yeah,
That should
I
be
have
interesting.
I have no idea. We'll figure that out. We'll tackle that when we're able to talk
tomorrow.
with Jeff. We'll figure that out tomorrow. But yeah, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out on the live stream. You can come back tomorrow and watch that. For those of you listening on iTunes right now or on YouTube as well, you can hang out with us live if you so choose. At twitch.tv/technicalalpha. And we'd love to see you there for sure. But until we do see you, thank you once again. And until next time, peace.
Bye.